In this video, we're going to look at Alibaba here on the weekly chart. 127 is going to be the level we're going to watch in here, depending on if we're going to be gapping up or down on this next week's trading session. This level is going to be a big resistance or support for us. So if we're gapping up, we're looking for a hold of the 127s, and we're looking at that 120, I'm sorry, the 131, 132 area. And then above that, we're going to be looking at this upper trend line here, or our 0% fib retrace, whichever one does come first, right around those 148s. Now, if we're gapping down and staying below the 127, which we currently are right now, that is going to be our major resistance. Below that for support, we're looking at this 9-day EMA in here, right around that 120 level. Nice psychological level for us in here to kind of be aware of. And then below that, we're looking at this 38.2 fib retrace here on the weekly at 113.89. Your RSI has gone up just a little bit. Well, we are on some below average volume up here, so looking a little bit shaky as we're kind of sitting up here on that big basically 9-day move we've had overall in the market. So it's going to be, maybe we're getting a little bit over exhausted in here. On the daily chart, you can see it's kind of telling us the same thing. We're getting close to overbought in here on our RSI, but you had some decent volume coming in here compared to the last week on BABA. Now, we did have a gap up in here, so that did help, around a $5.23 gap up in here for Alibaba. But we did have indecision on the day after that gap up. So now, once you create a gap up, now guess what? We have a gap down here that we have to worry about filling. So we gapped up, filled this gap here from earlier in April, but guess what? We just created a new gap that we have to worry about. So if the 127s do get rejected, look for a gap fill here at the daily first, right around that 121 area before we worry about that 9-day EMA, which is at 119.5. So currently what we're looking at is on the daily chart, you're looking for a gap fill, and then below that, right around that 119, 120 area, it's looking like that is overall a consistent support for us in here as we're looking at the weekly and the daily charts. If we go into the 30-minute chart, you can see obviously gap up overnight and then kind of just stayed wrapped around that 9-day EMA all day in here. A little bit of a lull midday and then a nice climb back. And then just a hold in here, even in aftermarkets. So it's overall a decent move in here. But what are we looking at? Again, 127, that's going to be the key. Support wise, below the 127, we're looking at that the 120 area. As far as resistance above the 127, 131, 132, and then we're looking at that 148 for our long-term resistance in here. Now, we do have earnings coming up pre-market next Thursday, so we might get a nice little earnings catalyst in here. So RSI, don't look too far into this, but since that daily chart did show a gap in indecision, we might need to pull back in to fill that gap down at the 120s first before we have to worry about climbing higher into a nice earnings run for an earnings catalyst push. So earnings coming up next week, pre-market Thursday. Your IV in here is still really high. IV rank at 40, and you have right around an $11 expected move by next Friday's expiration. So keep that all that in mind as we're trading in here on BABA. Again, on the weekly, what are we looking at? Basically, overall, what are we looking at? 127. That's going to be the level in here, depending on if we're going to be gapping up or staying below that level in this next trading session. All right, guys, make sure to check us out on all of our social media. We also have a Discord service if you're interested, and you can find all of our socials in the description below.